Hey there, if you're a fan of classic rock like me, you'll probably enjoy this marathon of short album and song reviews. Then if you feel so inclined, maybe give this other comp a watch to get a feel for the kind of madman running this operation. As for you lot already subscribed, watch to the end for a brief update on things. Let's not waste any more time, enjoy the show. Rock is dead, long live rock, yada yada. Lots of masterful albums are turning 50 in 2023, but for many, nothing can eclipse the semi-centennial milestone that is every dad rocker and his son's favorite t-shirt. Memes aside, Dark Side is so played, so acclaimed, and so synonymous with old people music that it can be easy to go in with sky-high expectations in a manner similar to The Godfather or Citizen Kane or Avatar: The Way of Water, directed by James Cameron. But to me, if you go in with a level head and an open mind, you will be treated to one of the most flowing, cohesive experiences of the time or any time, haunting melodies, exciting song-to-song dynamics, and some of the most crisp production put to tape, all with just the right amount of cutting-edge instrumentation to be timeless, remaining psychedelically jazzy in the most Floyd way possible without becoming full-tilt capital P proggers. It's progressive music without being too esoteric for casual listeners, and it blends so many textures and tones that I'm in love with while chewing on immortal themes of, well, mortality, listlessness, and vain materialism. If you haven't played it, do it today. I don't think you'll regret it. If Dark Side of the Moon transcends time and space in being so smooth and accommodating, Todd Rundgren's A Wizard, a True Star is of near equal power by being the exact opposite. By embracing then state-of-the-art synthesizers, with genre hopping no doubt indicative of what he was on at the time as well as what he was on at the time, Todd crafted a record that sounds so chaotic and nutty in such a 70s way, while simultaneously being an undeniable influence on every decade of pop since. Other progsters of the 70s followed his example, 80s synth rock took a few cues, and of course, many an indie bedroom musician is indebted to Wizard's largely one-man production and psychedelic zigzags of genre and tonality. The quirky art pop of Ariel Pink, the vibey lo-fi of Joji, and of course the progressive soul of Frank Ocean have Rundgren DNA all over them. Blonde in particular, with its admitted Beatles Brian Wilson roots, lines up with Todd's MO so much that somewhere in this mix, there's a sample off of this very album. Game sees game, art begets art, and brain-f***y psych pop shall reign forever. If The Who's Tommy tapped into the quasi-mystical trends of flower power, their next rock opera took a more reflective, self-referential approach to its story. Chronicling the angsty ups and downs of a teenage mod, Quadrophenia looks back on England's pop scene with the hindsight and technical skill of a band that made Won't Get Fooled Again. Performed with their usual four-piece might, yet layered with ambitious studio touches and sound effects, the album features some of Pete Townshend's most potent songwriting. In centering the action around a listless kid in the thick of an identity crisis, the band expresses a deep emotional understanding for the era's youth, and is comparable to Catcher in the Rye, American Graffiti, or Saturday Night Fever. It's such a cinematic work that it was eventually adapted into a movie that I'd eventually like to cover. Till then though, get the best pair of headphones you have access to and enjoy this stunning musical drama about well-dressed scooter gangs. No, I'm not kidding. I'll get to those next. As a standout track on an album packed with standout tracks, Helter Skelter is unique in its focused sonic rage, brought into being to compete with the ever-increasing volume of harder rock bands like The Who. It was also a conscious attempt by Paul McCartney to make the heaviest, most aggressive track possible within the Beatles, and offset his rep as the happy-go-lucky cornball of the group, which he was and is, but I do get wanting to disprove the implication that it's all he was capable of, and this song does that beautifully, while simultaneously etching a new template for rock and roll's more chaotic offspring. It served the rest of the White Album's MO to transcend, deconstruct, and reconstruct the form of pop music, and is in no way a flesh parallel with the ramblings and paranoia of some racist piece of shit and his non-contributing nega-hippie f***head followers who enabled his fantasy of supreme control over the listless dark-skinned masses who'd crave post-race war leadership. Yeah, this is real. The kooky Jesus LARPer from those videos thought this. If you ask me, Tarantino's next movie should just take the fight directly to the top of the f***ing ladder. I'm a sucker for that nebulous subgenre of the 60s and 70s called Baroque pop. Stuff that incorporates orchestral elements while still adhering to digestible runtimes and hooks. Every singer-songwriter after Lennon-McCartney dabbled in this approach at some point, yet Velvet Underground co-founder John Cale's Paris 1919 sets itself apart from the pack with a unique mix of poetic lyrics, period imagery, and a more matter-of-fact vocal delivery. Cale's name is more directly attached to proto-punk artists like Patti Smith and the Stooges, or the experimental art rock of Brian Eno and Lou Reed. This mix makes this decidedly reeled-in, sophisticated record stand out from the rest of his discography. It's much more meditative and cinematic, planting you right in the vibe and iconography of the time and place it's named after. And I gotta say, that title track has one of the most infectious choruses I've heard in a long time. Give this thing a listen if you're low on hoity-toity, hanky-panky know-how boomer bops to sip bourbon to. Say that shit 3 times. As I like to cover pretty often on this channel, we live in the world of the one-man show, an age where dreamers with MacBooks are able to make hit singles or entire albums from the comfort of their bedroom. That said, disciples of this modern practice would still do well to study their ancestors' efforts in multi-track musicianship. One of my favorites in this category is none other than Electric Light Orchestra founder Roy Wood, whose solo debut Boulders turned 50 this past year. Even though it was recorded at major studios with a couple extra hands at the board, a majority of the production and playing was done by Wood himself. The result is a genre-hopping tribute to every flavor of music that he's ever appreciated, from old-school rock and roll and country to contemporary folk and psychedelia of the time. Even within these pastiches, it's packed with a unique character, made possible by crafty studio effects and obscure instruments that Roy picked up at secondhand shops. Pull it up where you can and enjoy a cult classic from a godfather of orchestral pop rock. Roy's your boy. Smash Brothers, Boomer Pop, Esoterica, I live for this shit. Oh yeah, I like these guys. The band that changed the trajectory of my music love and life started out as a supercharged cover machine of R&B standards. If the Beatles kicked the doors open and the Stones went inside to get freaky with it, the Who strapped some nitro and fireworks to their amps and blew a fucking hole in the floor. After cutting their teeth at pubs, house shows, and dance halls, and after crafting some original jams of their own, they took the British airwaves by storm with a series of high-voltage singles and eventually this iconic LP that went harder, louder, and faster than anyone else in the genre up to that point. Highlights for me are The Kids Are Alright, a slice of melodramatic teen pop that shows off a soulful tenderness we often forget Roger Daltrey is capable of, and the closing instrumental The Ox, which proved as early as their first full-length record that Moon and Thunderfingers were one of the best rhythm combos on the face of the earth. But let's cut the shit. That title track invented punk and you can't tell me otherwise. Don't believe me? Just listen to a Patti Smith cover that was recorded live about a decade later, available on a special edition of Horses. She knew it, I knew it, and now you know it. Go listen to Horses 2, by the way. That record's mad important. I just don't have the time to make a full pocket about it. My Generation is the kind of record that becomes a blueprint for half a century of art, and its DNA can be heard throughout power pop, punk, and every garage revival we've had since. So before 2025's up, pull it up where you can and let it rip in honor of its 60th. Despite being a rock band with a winding, shape-shifting journey, Pink Floyd is often distilled down to one of 2 albums. On one hand, you have the dad rock disc, imprinted on posters, shirts, and pop cultural snapshots through every generation of listeners since. On the other, you've got the Supreme Rock Opera, a double album of epic riffs encasing a quasi-musical about paranoia and isolation. While both are must-haves and among the best concept albums ever recorded, some make the case that 1975's Wish You Were Here, through its balancing of themes, experimentation, and overall listenability, might be their crowning achievement as a group, at the very least from their post-Sid era in the 70s. Dark Side of the Moon's reputation and status is often a drawback in the minds of devoted music fans. My friend Durant put it best one time: one of the best things ever made, and yet I never have to listen to it again. Meanwhile, The Wall has some monstrous songs that everybody loves, especially the one about the meat and the puddin', or Gilmore's monumental solo on Comfortably Numb. But unless you're in the right state of mind to listen to it front to back, that filler in between the good stuff can be a little too much, and there's something to be said about the self-centeredness of a rock star going insane. It's a valid story, and I think the popularity speaks to how many regular people relate to the pressures of performing a role despite not being celebrities themselves, much like a lot of Bo Burnham's comedy, for example. But there's nonetheless a helping of first-world problems there that I can understand turning certain people off. Wish You Were Here, though, is an ideal medium and features the Floyd at its subtlest, its most cerebral, and most focused. A bit more to chew on and less of the baggage of being being the greatest record ever made. Save for the timeless title track, an acoustic gem that gets about as much radio time as the other heavy hitters from those other releases, these lengthy, synth-textured opuses are vibey without being too predictable, and unleash a muted yet angsty rage at the parasitic parts of the music industry, conveyed in a way that's applicable to other industries. The two-part Shine On You Crazy Diamond is an almost spiritual tribute to former frontman Syd Barrett, who infamously showed up to the sessions for this record, not recognized right away because he had changed so much since they had last seen him. Gorgeous track on its own, but this episode certainly gives it a haunting quality every time I listen to it. But my own personal favorite is Welcome to the Machine, a synthetic anti-anthem of the arts that really gets into your head, with lyrics like, "What did you dream? It's alright, we told you what to dream," ringing truer each passing year. Again, there's a handful of Floyd releases that I can picture being someone's favorite or even the best, but something about Wish You Were Here hitting just after the band revolutionized rock music, yet also a good while before they got a little too ambitious for their own good. Wherever you fall on that discussion, cue it up to celebrate its 50th. We can all agree nothing bad can come from that.
Running over the same old ground.
This thing you just watched is part of a multi-step plan to wake the channel back up, renormalize non-short uploads, and shake myself out of any hesitation to make whatever coaxes me out of this slump I find myself in every winter. I'll be spending the next few weeks building the channel into a landing strip for a major release that I really want to get seen, because if this shit whiffs after having been delayed as long as it already has, I'm gonna redact it due to terms of service. Shit, that was supposed to be an audio-visual gag, but that's okay, because now it's a verbal one. Less editing. Anyway, if you're a newcomer, thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe if this did anything for you. If you're an old comer, because that's a word, head over to my second channel for some extra content about creativity. If you're from either of those camps and want to help ensure that I keep doing this, consider checking out my Patreon page. That's all I'm saying for now. Hope y'all's new year is fucking better than mine. Peace.